He was the voice of my faith. Now I don't know what to believe. The fall of Michael Tait and the scandal rocking the Christian music industry. That was the response from a longtime fan. Upon hearing the news, Michael Tait, the powerhouse voice behind DC Talk and frontman of the Newsboys, wasn't just a performer for many. He was a spiritual compass, a role model, a voice that defined youth group rallies, mission trips, and Sunday morning drive. He wasn't just famous in Christian music. He was Christian music. But now everything has changed. Michael Tait has gone silent, and the reason why is shaking an entire industry to its core, a sprawling investigation. Years in the making has finally pulled back the curtain on what some insiders call Christian music's most protected secret. According to the Roy's report, Tait is now facing serious allegations of NSA, grooming, emotional manipulation, and substance misuse. Over 50 individuals were interviewed during the course of the 2.5-year investigation. The allegations span more than 2 decades, with victims who never knew each other sharing nearly identical stories. This isn't a tabloid headline. This is a reckoning. In January 2025, fans were eagerly awaiting the Newsboys' Canadian tour. It was supposed to be a high-energy kickoff to the year, backed by Faith Live, one of the leading Christian event organizers. Then, just days before the first show, Michael Tait made a vague announcement via social media. He was stepping down for personal reasons, no interviews, no explanations, just silence. Faith Live canceled the tour almost immediately. Their official statement cited a growing lack of transparency surrounding Tait's departure. They didn't explain further, but the message was clear. Something was wrong behind the scenes. The real story had been in motion for years. Victims and witnesses had finally begun to speak. The Roy's report investigation alleges that Michael Tait used his fame and spiritual influence to gain access to young men, often in their early 20s, and manipulate them emotionally, intimately, and psychologically. According to survivors, the encounters often began as mentorship or spiritual guidance. Then came invitations to private meetings, drinks, blurred boundaries, and finally, an alleged SA. The common denominator: Michael Tait's charm, power, and control. Stephen was a 22-year-old guitarist touring with the Chris Sly Band when he met Tait, his childhood hero. Tait took an immediate interest in him, offering him advice, expensive dinners, and praise, but things escalated quickly. In January 2011, Tait invited Stephen to his home there. Stephen says he was given several drinks until he passed out. When he woke up, Tait was allegedly fondling and kissing him. Stephen told his bandmates and girlfriend, but instead of support, the seriousness of the assault was turned into an inside joke among the crew. He says he felt trapped, ashamed, and unsure of what to do. Years later, when other victims began coming forward, Stephen's former bandmates realized the truth. They've since apologized and publicly backed Stephen's account. Philip met Tait as a young worship musician and devoted fan. Their connection began innocently, with Philip viewing Tait as a mentor, but during a winter visit to Tait's Nashville home, things took a disturbing turn. According to Philip, Tait gave him a back rub while they were alone in a hot tub. Later, he exposed himself and invited Philip into his bed. Philip, unsure of what to make of it, accepted, only to have Tait allegedly grope and massage him inappropriately. Philip turned him down and never heard from him again. He told his girlfriend, now wife, but feared that coming forward would outtake and destroy his career. So he stayed silent for nearly 20 years. Now he says the time for silence is over. Taylor was part of the Newsboys touring crew when he had what he calls the most confusing and violating night of his life. The tour bus had a no women overnight policy, but alcohol flowed freely. Tait often initiated physical closeness, which Taylor brushed off as friendly. One night, after heavy drinking, Taylor woke to find Tait allegedly rubbing his genitals through his jeans, disoriented and scared. He pretended to be asleep until Tait left that same night. Tait had allegedly offered him a substance commonly known as coke, which Taylor declined. He told his fiancée, now wife, but never reported it. Like others, he quietly distanced himself from the Christian music industry. He's now speaking publicly, supporting the other victims. So why did it take decades for these stories to come to light? According to multiple sources, interviewed by the Royce Report, Tait's influence and the fear he instilled was enough to keep people quiet. Victims feared being blacklisted from the industry, shunned by Christian communities, or labeled as attackers of a beloved public figure. Then there's the culture in Christian music where fame, faith, and identity are tightly woven. Allegations like these aren't just damaging, they're devastating for many. To accuse a leader is to question one's own spiritual journey. That emotional weight keeps victims silent. It keeps institutions defensive, and it allowed, according to these allegations, abuse to thrive unchecked. The tide began to shift in January 2025 when a viral video indirectly outed Tait's alleged misconduct. While the video was widely criticized for its invasive approach, it had an unintended effect. It shattered the decades-old wall of silence. The very next day, Tait stepped down from Newsboy. Within weeks, survivors who had held onto their stories for years felt emboldened to come forward. For them, the scandal was no longer theoretical. It was personal. The silence had cost them too much. Newsboys have not addressed the allegations directly. Their attorney issued a statement minimizing the accusations as unsubstantiated aspersions, saying it would be inappropriate to speculate on Tait's alleged actions. Tait himself has not issued a public response, despite the Royce Report reaching out multiple times for comment. Faith, live. The ministry behind the canceled tour has also remained vague in their statements across Christian social media. The reaction has been swift, emotional, and deeply divided. Longtime fans, faith leaders, musicians, and insiders are wrestling with the unraveling of a figure many once saw as beyond reproach. For some, the instinct is grace calls for prayer, understanding, and space for redemption. For others, the moment demands something much harder: truth, justice, and full accountability. Because this story isn't just about Michael Tait. It's about what allowed him allegedly to harm others while remaining untouchable for years. It's about the Christian industry's uneasy marriage to celebrity, about the ways power can masquerade as anointing, about how fear, loyalty, and institutional silence have too often protected the platform instead of the vulnerable. At the time of this writing, no criminal charges have been filed. Legally, the process may be quiet, but in the public square and in the hearts of countless believers, the trial has already begun. And now the question is no longer just about what Michael Tait did or didn't do. The question is, will the Christian music world reckon with its shadows? Will churches, ministries, and fans demand transparency from the industry they help build? Or will the machine carry on hoping the uproar fades? The clicks slow down, and the silence resumes because silence is what let this happen in the first place. If you or someone you know has experienced harm, manipulation, or any form of misconduct in a ministry, music, or faith-based setting, please know this: you are not alone. What happened to you matters. Your voice matters. You are not invisible, and your story is not too small or too inconvenient to be heard. Too many have been made to feel isolated, silenced, or ashamed after enduring experiences that should never have occurred, especially in spaces meant to be safe, sacred, and supportive. Whether you've carried your story for years or are only now beginning to find the words, please understand that speaking up is an act of courage, not weakness. You deserve the right to tell your story, to be heard with compassion, and to be met with respect, not judgment. Speaking out helps break the silence that allows cycles of harm to continue. It helps others find strength. It reminds the world that justice, healing, and accountability still matter. So if you're ready, speak. Tell your truth. You are not alone, and your story could be the spark that helps someone else find hope. The time to break the silence is now.